Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be doing a review of the Emerald Rares, Super Rares, and Legendaries. Let's take a look. First up, we have Beast Wolfsbane. For 5 non-inkable casting costs, you get a 4/4 that quests for 2 lore with 2 abilities. The first is he has Rush, meaning they can challenge the turn they come down, and the second, when you play this character, exert all opposing damaged characters. What do I think of this card? I'm not a huge fan of it. It's okay in the right deck. 5 non-inkable casting costs is very expensive. The fact that you only exert damaged characters really makes this worse. That means you've already had to trade into something and now you're trading in a second time. That's not fantastic. And the fact that it only has 2 lore for 5 non-inkable, it's okay overall. I think I give this a 2.5 out of 3. Next up we got Cruella de Vil. 2 inkable casting costs for 1/3 with 1 lore, and its ability is You'll Be Sorry. When this character is challenged and banished, you may return chosen character to their player's hand. There's a couple things here. It's important that it says you may return chosen character to the player's hand, because that gives you the option. Certainly if they have a big 7/7 that they've taken 6 damage on after killing Cruella, you don't want to banish that character, right? You want that character on the field with one toughness left rather than them getting to replay it. So that's an important factor. So what do I think of this card? It's okay. It's good in the value deck and it's good in the tempo deck. Certainly this card's not going to win you games on its own, but it's one of those cards, if they have a 2/2, they have to attack into it twice while you're getting lore the entire time through, and then it actually trades after 2. I mean, this is a reasonable early play, and the fact that it's inkable, I like it quite a bit. I'd probably give it a 3.5 out of 5. Next we have GENIE Powers Unleashed, an 8 non-inkable casting cost for a 3/5 with 3 lore that has Shift 6, Evasive, and Phenomenal Cosmic Power. Whenever this character quests, you may play an action with cost 5 or less for free. So overall, I think this is probably a bait card. The power here, we get to play any action for 5 or less. People are going to start trying to combo decking, getting their Dragonfire off, getting all these big abilities off for 4 or 5. And if it works out, it's fantastic. The problem is you still have to shift it for 6 at a minimum, and this is non-inkable. I just think it costs too much. You get a lot if it comes down. 3 lore is huge. 3 lore with evasive is huge. It's a big body, so other evasive creatures aren't going to be able to challenge it. I'd almost rather this have ward than shift. I mean, that way it has to be challenged by evasive creatures, but I think that's just the dream. Overall, this is okay. If you can find a deck that you're really going to make it work and combo off, it can be good. But I'd probably give this a 2 out of 5. Next up, we have Hans, Scheming Prince, 4 inkable casting costs for a 3/3 with 3 lore, with no abilities. I really like this card. This is a card that's going to put a ton of pressure. I mean, this is a must answer, right? You drop this on turn 4. If you need the ink, it's inkable. And then you're questing for 3, they have to challenge into it. They need to. They're going to lose the game if they don't. And then it's a pretty big body as a 3/3. I actually like this card quite a bit. I'd give it a 3.5 out of 5. Up next, we've got Iago, Loudmouth Parrot. 3 inkable casting costs for 1/4 with 1 lore. And you're able to exert Iago, and then chosen character gains Reckless, meaning they have to attack in. What's the use of this character? If your deck is going to have a real hard time dealing with evasive creatures, you could play this character, make one of their evasive creatures reckless, so they have to challenge in. I mean, that's okay. Overall, though, I'm not a big fan. I mean, 3 casting costs for a 1/4 that doesn't have evasive itself isn't a great deal. I'd probably give this a 2.5 out of 5. Then we have John Silver, Alien Pirate, 6 inkable casting costs for a 5/5. So a really big body, reasonable casting cost for that as well, and it is inkable with 2 lore, which is pretty good. And then it has Pick Your Fights. When you play this character and whenever he quests, chosen opposing character gains Reckless. So this is the Iago that we just saw. So you're able to quest with John Silver, and then you're able to make their weaker characters, any character you want to get rid of, attack into you. And given that John Silver is a big body, and some of your other creatures are also big bodies, as we saw, such as Prince Hans, these are pretty big bodies. You're going to force them to challenge in on bad trades. I actually like this quite a lot. I'd probably give this a 4 to 5. We have Cusco, 5 non-inkable casting costs for a 2/4 with 3 lore. He does have ward, and this is what I do like on the genie, that people aren't able to hard remove him. They have to attack in. And then no touchy, when this character is challenged and banished, you may banish the challenging character. So I mean, this is fantastic. This is really, really good. So it's immune to any of hard removal spells, which is perfect. If and when they do challenge in, they actually lose their own creature. It's a pretty big body at a 2/4. You're getting 3 lore a turn off of this, so they have to challenge in and lose one of their creatures, if not 2 of their creatures. The only downside of the card is that it's not inkable, but other than that, I think this is an excellent card. I give it a 4 out of 5. We have Lady Tremaine, a 6 non-inkable casting cost for a 1/5 with 1 lore. And then do it again. When you play this character, you may return an action card from your discard to your hand. I'm not a huge fan. Again, this is one of those tempos. The idea that you're going to pay 6 to get an action card back. I mean, 6 for this body. If this was just a 6 non-inkable for a 1/5 with 1 lore, that would be horrendous. That would be a 0. That would be unplayable. And so the idea that you're going to play an unplayable creature that is non-inkable and pay 6 for it to get a card back from your discard pile. Like, 1, you have to have a card in the discard pile that you want to get back. 2, you better not lose the game while you're fuddling about here, playing a 6 casting cost and then trying to cast something on top of it. I just don't like it. I'd give it a 1.5 out of 5. Kind of in the same vein, we have Do It Again. Return an action card from your discard to your hand for 3 non-inkable. Again, I don't think this is fantastic. You're not gaining any cards, right? You're losing this card to get a card back. So you're 1-for-1ing. You lose the turn doing this, because essentially having to pay 3 ink to do this. You're not able to ink this. If this was inkable, I think it would be playable. But as it is, I'm not a huge fan. I give it a 1.5 out of 5. We've got Steal from the Rich, 5 non-inkable action. Whenever one of your characters quests this turn, each opponent loses 1 lore. If you watch some of my earlier videos on how I rank cards, I'm not a huge fan of having your opponents lose lore. I'd rather just gain lore myself or build my board presence. Now, if this was an item, whereas on the first quest of every turn, opponent loses 1 lore, that'd be reasonable. But certainly you'd have to set it up really large. We've got 4, 5, 6 creatures on the board, and then you have to pay 5 non-inkable, so they lose like 4 lore. And if you only have 1 or 2 creatures, you're paying 5 for them to lose 2 lore. That's just horrendous. I'd give this a 1 out of 5. Next we have Genie on the Job, a 3/4 non-inkable for 6 with 2 lore. It does have evasive, so only other evasive creatures can challenge, and it does have disappear. When you play this character, you may return chosen character to their player's hand. This is okay. It's a bit expensive. It does have a bounce, which is nice. This is one of those tempo plays. They play one of their big 5 or 6 drops. Its ink is drying, so it can't do anything that turn. You play Genie, you bounce it back to their hand. They waste a turn doing it. I think in the right deck, this could be very good. Kind of in the same vein as Cruella de Vil. Those kind of tempo decks where you keep bouncing things to their hand while you're still getting value, right? You still play Cruella, you still play Genie, you're still getting your creatures on the board that are hard to deal with, that are evasive. And then anytime they're trying to do something, just keep something back a turn. This is reasonable. Obviously, the card is going to be super expensive because it's enchanted. But I'd probably give this a 3 out of 5. And finally, we have Mickey Mouse Artful Rogue. So for 7 non-inkable, huge casting costs, you get a 6/5, which is a very good body, 2 lore, which is reasonable. You do have Shift 5, and there are some reasonable Mickey Mouse characters in the set with Misdirection. And whenever you play an action, chosen opposing character can't quest during their next turn. I'm not a huge fan of this. So if we take Misdirection out, paying 7 non-inkable for 6, 5, and 2, that's not fantastic. I mean, if you take a look at Aladdin is similar for 7. Aladdin in Ruby, I should clarify. Similar in 7, both quest for 2 lore. Aladdin is inkable. Both of them shift for 5, so they're very similar. This body's a bit bigger, so I guess the question is what do you gain or lose by making this non-inkable? Because Aladdin's inkable. Here, you gain whenever you play an action. They just can't quest 1 turn. Like, 1 character can't quest for every action. That's not fantastic. Whereas for Aladdin, on every banish, you get 2 lore, they lose 2 lore. That's fantastic. I think in the right deck, if you have recurring low action casting cost cards, this certainly could be okay. I just can't get over the 7 non-inkable casting costs, and even if it's 5 non-inkable, that's just too much. I'd probably give this a 2.5, but I could see how it would find a home in the proper deck. So that is it. This was the full Emerald set review for the rares, super rares, and legendaries. If you like this video, please hit the like button below. If you really like this video, please hit subscribe, and feel free to leave a comment. I'm happy to answer any questions. See everyone later.